Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster, where we are working on Alpine Odyssey, our new theme park here today on the channel. So, what we are building today is the parking garage in the back corner of the parking lot that we established here in the first episode. Now, the reason I am working on a parking garage instead of just the open air parking is simply that I want something to be vertical back here. I don't want to have just a big flat area with lines drawn everywhere. You know, I know that can look nice, but for me, personally, I like things with a lot of height variance. I like a bunch of layers, and a parking garage, even though I'm not 100% sure that theme parks use them often, it is something that I've never built before, so I figured I'll give it a go. You know, parking garages are pretty straightforward if you think about it. There are, you know, the side walls are fairly open, and then there are the vertical pillars kind of holding up a lot of the bulk of the weight. There's also a lot of central pillars kind of making sure the structure is sound, because it is holding up, you know, a bunch of heavy vehicles as well as the heavy concrete that it's made out of. And it's just going to be an interesting process, because this is something that not many people, I don't think, make in Planet Coaster. You know, a lot of people will make a castle. I don't know about parking garages. We got a spiral-like structure over here in the back corner of it, and I'm going to build this off to the side because I don't want my camera to be clipping through anything and make it a pain as I try and stitch this kind of spiraling ramp for the access point to the upper floors. Now, this thing gave me a little bit of trouble because spirals, as they work, the farthest edge kind of goes at a gentle slope, and then the near side edge goes at a very steep angle compared to the rest of it. You know, that's just kind of how the general shape works. Not many good items to do that in Planet Coaster. You know, I do give it my best here to get something really smooth, because for me it was kind of important to do so. However, we end up kind of going into, you know, the shapes, trying out different things and techniques to try and get this smooth shape to form. It just wasn't really working, and I couldn't really wrap my head around how to do this in a good fashion. So we make little step ramps as smooth as possible, almost like a spiral staircase, because working in more of a staircase fashion, you are able to get this slope to look a little bit more uniform than otherwise possible, at least in my experience. So that's what we are doing there, making sure all of our tiles are fitting together. You know, I do like to gray box and test a lot of things before I go into the detail phase. It is something that I like to do just because the overall proportions and the scale and the weight of the structure to me is the most important. Detail secondary, just because if you don't have a good silhouette or a good outline or something solid looking, a lot of the times, you know, you can make it as pretty as possible, but it could fail as an overall structure just because it's just not jiving really well. We got another kind of parking garage across a little alleyway there. Now, these will be combined on a upper level by using a bridge, and I'm doing that to create kind of additional layers of depth, you know, between, say, the two structures. You know, you're now going to have an overpass going over the kind of parking lot alleyway there, and that's just going to create even more points of interest, and also it just looks cool. So when it comes down to it, you know, the rule of cool kind of overrides most of my decisions here in Planet Coaster, and it's just how I enjoy building my builds. Now, the concrete there at the bottom is something that is very reminiscent to the parking garage here where I live. It is this off gray kind of blue color. It's almost like a rubbery plastic that they pour and seal the concrete of the base structure in, and I think they do that to protect the foundation from, like, say, oil and anything that the vehicles might do to heavily damage the structure, because it might be cheaper to kind of pour this substance over it and repair it, rather than repairing the concrete itself. And that way, you just keep your maintenance fees down. At this point, we are moving on to some detailing, and detailing is done simply by copy and paste a lot of these elements around. We are using kind of a white stone to create a little bit of a backdrop to the red brick that we are overlaying it. I'm also saving as a blueprint our first little cone and our first traffic barrel, because these things are going to have to be used later, and since this is a separate structure, they're not going to be able to be copied and pasted too easily. So, I have a feeling that I'm going to be using these a lot, especially in backstage areas in the theme park itself, so might as well save them now and use them when we come to it. At this point, we are going to go ahead and work on some floor tile sets for the interior of the parking garage. Now, some people might just build the building and leave it like that. However, I enjoy making things enterable. I enjoy making things actually look like and behave a bit more like their real life counterparts. Not to say that I'm going full realistic here, but it is definitely more interesting for me to see things interact with the building rather than just the front facade of the building there. And we are going to have these arrows and turn arrows, also the parking spots made out of these pre-made tiles, and we're just going to go ahead and lay out the central path that the cars will take to get around initially. The leftmost path is just going to go straight to the back of the building. The alleyway is kind of reserved as more of a return path from there, so that's actually the exit way. So if you're trying to get to the left kind of parking garage there, it might be quicker to go cut through the first floor here and then go into the left garage and work your way up that way, rather than going up 3 floors and taking the bridge. It also gives the option of the say staff to maybe shut down a section of the parking garage and still allow traffic to get into the other one, and that's just an interesting little tidbit that I was thinking of when I was making these. And really, that's kind of a really helpful thing to do, is to try and come up with little stories as to why things are built in certain manners. They don't have to be necessarily realistic story. They just need to make sense in the world that you're constructing in your head, and if it does, then in my opinion, it's going to be a successful item. Now here we are testing out and making sure the tile set is lining up, and it does. We have a dead space here in the center of the first floor, and I want to add a little bit of a pedestrian kind of caution area where people are able to walk a little bit more freely, because the edges of the buildings kind of more reserved for the actual cars themselves, so there's not much foot traffic room in here. So cutting down the middle there is a little bit more of a safety feature in this garage. And also, it's just a dead space that I was trying to fill, and I figured adding more lines and details which is going to make that look a lot more nice. Now we need to fill in some gaps left from the spiral, and then we can copy and paste this thing up and start working on the next floor. The next floor is technically the only other floor we need to make in this building, because at this point we can just go through and stack this floor on top of each other. The first floor and the top floor are different. All the floors in between are the same, and that's just due to repetition and simple planning by the architects there. You don't want to have a whole lot of unique features, and you want every floor to read pretty much like the floor before. And now we also gonna have to fill in and change some of these entry points and exit points from the ramps, and also say the entrances and exits of the garage itself, because they don't exist on the second floor. And that's what we're doing here. Also, try and mix up the yellow paint and the white paint a little bit there. Recolored the arrows to more of an orange hue, because I just think it makes them stand out a little bit more than the actual parking spots. And I think that's what you want. You want people to go and follow the traffic rather than be distracted by the parking lines themselves. Here is the top level, and you can see we can just kind of paste that on there. We're gonna have to do a little bit of custom stitching at the top just to make it all fit together, and that's a simple kind of copy and paste and raise it upwards just a little bit there. But overall, it is just an open air top. Now, I am thinking about adding some covered elements here, maybe an awning or some sort of thing to just keep the sun out of people's cars. I know that could be a feature in some more warm climates. However, this is Alpine, so I don't think it is really necessary. Maybe if it's snowing, they would do it, but I'm not quite 100% sure. You guys can let me know in the comments down below. Really, anything that you want to see added to these parking garages or the parking lots in general, because we still have a lot of those to make. But you know, once we get a template down and start just laying out these parking lots, getting all the details kind of just thrown in there, and then the vegetation to kind of tie it all together, this beginning of the park is going to be pretty strong, and that's what I was hoping for when we get into this. So the toll road also, you know, is going to fit this theme a little bit as well. You know, a little bit more of a modern esque structure, definitely more campy and not a theme park yet. It is more kind of the backdoor utility stuff, and from that point we'll just move into the actual park once we're ready for that. It's gonna be maybe a little bit, I'm not quite sure, it depends on how quickly I can get through this section before we even make our first ride, which is pretty interesting to think about, you know, because Planet Coaster, a lot of people will spend, you know, their whole time just making coasters, which is great, and I'm spending hours making a parking garage, which is totally, I doubt the game developers thought people would bother, just because you know, maybe they thought the rides would be a bit more fun to work on. But I think this is just showing off the power that you can do in Planet Coaster itself, just because you can essentially create anything you want, you know, from people doing sculpting and more things with the shapes themselves than probably than I could ever do, for sure. So I think that's it for today's speed build. We are going to move into real time, take a look at it all. You guys will be able to give me your feedback and let me know if there's anything you want added to this area as I go in and finish up kind of stitching together the top level here. You can see the bridge going in as kind of the final little bit of this area. We'll have to clean this up, make this kind of fit and jive together. So here we go. Let's go take a look at it. Alright, so here we are taking a look at the front of the parking garage. Now, I'm not quite sure on what to do on this front kind of lower area here, kind of the access point into this back section and the exit way. Just because there's just so many options, you know, from little awnings to no parking spots here at all, and have it a little bit more of a controlled traffic flow. I think I'm going to leave this to you guys, so you guys can let me know what you think fits back here the best. But, you know, while you guys write those little comments, I'm going to go ahead and go over how everything is jiving together right now. So we have a retaining wall over here near the highway access road. Eventually we'll kind of seal this up as well. And this is just to create some greenery near the structure. You know, you don't want it to be completely barren. You're just adding this through here, I think, is trying to tie it down a little bit and make it blend into the nature of things a little bit more. And I think that's going to hopefully look good in the long run, especially when we get some more kind of filling in these dead spaces here. We're going to be doing a lot of things like this by the roads. You know, it's kind of this sparse vegetation, this loose kind of stuff there. This, however, ended up being quite a contained field, so I want it to be a little bit dense and a little bit more planned than the other kind of toll booth section. Back here is, you can see the exit out of the one side. This is the entry and exit out of the other building. We got the kind of upper bridge area. I might add some additional detail here just because it's just looking a little plain. However, eventually we do need to build a bus stop here and get this looking really cool, and how this interacts with the path I think will be an interesting challenge as well, because, you know, we have a bus stop there, Back there we have 2 more, and then all this other parking and greenery space to fill. So I think when this is all done, this will just look very beautiful, and I'm hoping for the best at it. Here is our spiral ramp, and you can see it's very, clear in here. You can just travel all the way down floor 2, and you just got the nice painted lines here to help guide the way. A little bit of a tree clip there, but that's something I want to probably look at to fix. Man, it gets really quiet when you go into a building in Planet Coaster. It's a little eerie, to be honest. So let's head back outside. Obviously, you can't be too high of a vehicle to get in here. You're going to scrape your top there, and they need some warning bars. 15-mile-an-hour speed limit inside the structure. Do keep it safe for the pedestrians. Over here is the other parking garage. This one's a little bit more of a traditional. The spiral one's really cool, and I do like that. But this is the one that I'm more used to seeing, definitely, where it's just a nice kind of slope, and then you go over here, and you can go down again. I do like the pattern on the roof of these things, because the tapered effect from these floorboards are creating this interesting line at the ceiling there, and that was completely unintentional. And sometimes you just gotta take the happy accidents when they happen, and just let it be, and just be grateful they show up, because those are like the best things in the world. Here is the first floor, and you can see those support columns going all the way up through here. Definitely another kind of pedestrian neutral zone, just trying to keep everyone safe. A little bit of a problem with shadows, but that's normal with Planet Coaster. It's kind of dependent on your graphic setting, and also where the sun is in the sky. I'm getting some of these lines there, but it's not terrible. But yeah, I think that's it. That is it for today's episode of the park. It is literally a parking lot. So go ahead, leave a comment down below on what you guys think. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe for more creative goodness such as this. It is 1 in the morning. I am tired, and I am gonna go to bed. So you guys have a good one, and I'll see you next time.